fellow Bahamians, I hope you listening well, because to have a distinguished young Bahamian who is so highly qualified and such a good researcher. I worked in some very high-powered universities, whether it be St. Andrews in Scotland or Harvard in the US, Yale, Georgetown. But Keva is one of the best researchers I've come across, and she's very thorough, and that's how she lives her life. And we have people like that in our country, and I don't know if we really honor them sufficiently, but it's important to know that we do have a cadre of people who are highly qualified. Keva, as you look at your study again, what other aspects came to mind?
One of the other questions on our survey was, do you know anyone who has ever committed suicide? If you go to slide 10. What we found is more than half of Bahamians said, yes, I know someone who has committed suicide. 56% said yes, 42% said no. So
56% said they know somebody
who has committed suicide.
Wow, that's pretty high, isn't it?
Right, because that goes in tandem with your theory that every Bahamian has a sociophile of about 100 people. So you might hear about these suicide, one here, one there, but every one is connected to at least 100 people.
And let me break that down. It's important. In our work and looking at our research, we find that each Bahamian has a social file or social connectedness to about 70 to 100 people. And so when somebody is killed or injured or really murdered or hurt, that doesn't just affect that one family. It affects the social file of the people who are socially related to that person. So if you add, over the past, except last year, we had over 100 murders every year, and now our suicide rate seems to be kicking up a little bit. You could see how our whole country is pretty traumatized. Yeah. So people have PTSD, people are on edge, and that's why we're rushing to build a family. And we'll be in certain areas tonight, and you'll be surprised. Starts at 6:15, you can't get a seat there. Bahamians are finally understanding jaw stops war. You don't come and work on yourself, you're going to do some crazy stuff. You could kill yourself, you could kill somebody you work with, kill somebody. You gotta, and the police do great work. But what we're trying to say, let's make the journey to, our heart, because if we don't go to our heart and fix our heart, then you could be a killer or you could be a suicider. And so, Keva, when you did this work and saw that 56% of Bahamians said they know somebody who killed themselves, was that shocking?
That's significant because in public health, you have something called prevalence and incidence. And prevalence is like the measure of the burden of the disease. So we saw a question one where a quarter of the people saying, okay, I'm thinking about it. That's the burden of your disease. Our question two actually track the incidence. Okay, how many people who have actually committed it? When you have half your population saying, yes, I know someone that has committed, that measures your incidence. So when you have your prevalence and incidence going hand in hand, that's significant. That's a significant issue in any public health epidemiological study.
That is amazing. And Keva, the other thing we came across is that some women who attempted suicide or even discussed suicide, they said that any child younger than 7, they would take with them.
Yes.
What's the reason for that?
We interviewed some Bahamian females who actually attempted suicide, and they said that they attempted and tried to also kill their children as well. The reason they said this is they came right out and said they don't trust the society to raise their children because it's the same society that caused them so much pain. So they didn't want to leave their children at the hands and say, well, they don't know what's going to happen to them. And that's those who have attempted and who thought about it, who we spoke to. Obviously, the suicide victims themselves we didn't speak to, but we've had a case like in the last year and a half,
serious suicide attempts,
where the young lady actually did succeed in taking her children with her off the Montague, right? So that's also something that we have to think about, the way we're treating our children, the way we're speaking to them, because if their parents are thinking about killing themselves and killing the children too, then what's that saying to us?
That really breaks me up because they literally told me, Dr. Allen, if I'm going to kill myself, I'm killing my kids younger than 7 because one, I don't trust the men, bring up my children. I don't trust the society. So if I'm going to kill myself, I'm taking my kids with me. And so in some of the serious ones that relate particularly Clifton Pier, we have about at least 8 or 9 women who had the kids in the car and
Went to drive over.
about to drive over. One case, she had a little baby who was, I think he was 9 months and couldn't talk. But she was speeding toward the edge. She said, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, stop." And she didn't know where that voice came from because he couldn't talk. Now, that's interesting for us because in our study we found that people who have tried to kill themselves, they sometimes hear a voice. And Keva, the question for us is, how come some people hear that voice and others don't?
It's just what you've spent your time putting into your life is what you'll get out of it in times of crisis.
So what is that voice then? Where that voice of that little baby came from?
That's the Holy Spirit.
That's what?
It's the Holy Spirit.
So you believe in that?
Yes.
So you're saying because that mother
Yeah.
had done her spiritual duties, her church, and even though she came on hard times, and
it's not about duty, you know. It's not about, okay, church or being religious. It's about relationship. If you spend that time fostering a relationship
with God,
right, who is triune, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, then in your times of trials and tribulations, the comforter, you know, Jesus promised to send the comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, to come and help you in your hour of need. So it's not all, oh, it's about religion and going to church. No, it's actually about relationship.
You know, I've not heard you put it so clearly about the Holy Spirit, the Comforter. We have a number. I'll tell you another. The lady was 11:30 one night. She had taken her pills and she'd gone off a certain beach. But then she remembered that I lived in that area. And as she was going under, she said, "I'm going to look for Dr. Allen's house." And I was so tired. When she rang the doorbell, I told my wife, "Please get the door." And Keva fussed me out. I shouldn't send my wife to the door at 11:30. But the point I'm making is, it was a lovely lady who was just, she said, "I can't take it anymore." And I was drowning myself, and I remembered you lived here, and I found out. And so she spent part of the night with us, drinking some soup, and by morning she had settled. So people remember. And then one morning, I got up and I saw this gentleman with 3 kids. He was showing them outside my yard and the median across the street. And I said, "Sir, can I help you?" Oh, he said, "Oh, Dr. Allen, I'm showing the kids where we spent last night." I said, "What do you mean you spent last night?" He said, "Well, my wife left me." And it's the first time I've heard this. He took the 3 kids out to Clifton Pier and was going to drive over the cliff. And after as he was about to drive over the cliff, he said, a voice said, "Go and park in front of Dr. Allen's house." So we turned around from West Clifton Pier, drove up West Bay Street, and he showed me across the street in the median where he parked, and him and the kids slept soundly. And by morning, the desire to kill himself was gone. Now, you were saying that's the Spirit too?
Who led him to
do that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, talk more about that. So you're saying that as Bahamians, developing our faith is extremely important.
Right, because it's not for today, but it's for tomorrow. What you might go through tomorrow.
So you don't go to church for the day. What may happen today.
Right. So you have to use your time wisely and pour into your psyche and your spirit something that you could pull out on, and because you know your hour of hard times will come. Nobody's exempt. That's part of being human, and that's the price we pay for being alive, right? So.
Well, that's an interesting spiritual interpretation, Keva. That's powerful, and because that's part of our psyche. Because you go into prison, you go anywhere, our people could pray, and so what you're saying is that spiritual side of this whole work has to be explored as well.
Yeah.
As you look at the overall study, any other aspects you want to raise?
I guess if we could get into, we also had a high rate of suicide attempts. Just a second. Oh, here it is. At Sandilands, our data showed that in 2010 we had 207 people admitted for suicide attempts. 2011 there was 194, and 2012 there was 250. So that's a lot of admissions for suicidal attempts.
And how does that compare with the RAND in Grand Bahama?
Well, at Sandilands, we had about 80 or 83% of the attempts were males, but at the RAND, there were more females admitted for attempts. Now, if our data from Sandilands was only from 2010 to 2012, but from the RAN, we had data from 2000 to 2012. That's a 10-year. So I'm guessing if we collected that extra 10 years worth of data from Sandilands, it might taper off. But
the reality is, you said that in Freeport, there were more females attempting suicide than males.
Yes.
Whereas in Sandilands,
right,
there are more males
admitted for attempting, yes.
Than females. Now, why would more females attempt suicide in Freeport than males?
Well, like I said earlier, the data from Sandilands was only 3 years versus we had 10 years worth of data from the RAN. So I'm not sure if that might have been an extenuating factor, the fact that we didn't have the same time period, we didn't have all the data, because if we gather that same amount of data from Sandilands, it might be equal. I don't know.
But it surprised us that Freeport had more women attempting suicide. And I'm wondering, recognize we still have to explore our data.
Yes.
But what would cause that, you think?
Well, females, I know females don't use as lethal means as males. Females would tend to try and maybe overdose, and if they're found in time, because females tend to have like more of a supportive network too, so somebody might find them when they take.
You all cry and you all hold each other, whereas men, we don't share our
they're more in
feelings.
isolate, right? So they'll go and hang themselves or shoot themselves in the head, which is lethal, and then they don't have anybody around them. Versus female, a female might overdose and still call someone and say what they just did. They could get to the hospital, get this, pumped and whatnot. So I don't know if the means and the method used isn't as lethal, and that's probably why they would be caught at the attempted level versus becoming an actual victim.
And of course, Freeport has come upon some hard times in the past few years.
Yeah.
And we do know in the Bahamian family, the mothers carry the major responsibility. So if things are tough in the family, many times it's the mothers who are suffering the pain of the economic burden of the children. And maybe in Freeport, going to this rough time, since women are in the homes, they felt the pain, and as a result, acted it out. Whereas the men were able to go to the barroom, get a few drinks, a brandy or a shot of gin or whatever, and cool out. I don't know, but it's interesting. That bit of the data surprised me.
Yeah, but you do realize alcohol consumption, you can kill yourself slowly by that as well. So, but that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, it's true, Keva. I guess everything you kill yourself with, but you're right, Many Bahamians kill ourselves by drinking alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. We're going to take a break and be right back.